The Blaze's conservative millennial Allie Stuckey joins in studio to discuss the whiniest generation. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then, Dr. Bickley and Emily Butler join the panel of deplorables to discuss Republican propaganda, my favorite, Jimmy Kimmel's latest humorless hacking for Democrats, and meat-eating vegetarians. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. My cup, it runneth over. My leftist tears mug, it runneth over. This week, yesterday, you saw we had roaming come in. We had my first day with roaming. And today, back to back, we're joined by Allie Stuckey, all the way from Texas, in studio. So we have to talk. I think you are the foremost expert on whiny snowflakes.
This is true.
And by the way,
officially,
you know, I am in a previous life, I've been an actor. I've been in numerous terrible indie movies that nobody's seen except at 3 in the morning on cable. You are teaching me things about the art of method acting. Can we show the latest clip of Allie Stuckey?
So I just graduated from college last week, Harvard actually, and I started my new job on Monday. So obviously on Sunday night, I wanted to go out with my friends and celebrate. It was a late night, so Monday morning, first day, I rolled in around 10:30, set up my desk, and my boss, my white male boss, had the audacity to come up to me and say, "Where have you been?" Where have I been? Well, I've been celebrating, and I've been partying, and then I've been sleeping, and I've been resting, because you know what? This is a stressful time. And you know what? I feel a little bit pressured and a little bit endangered right now. I do not feel safe, so I'll just leave and come back when you change your tune, Mr. White Male Boss. And you know what he said to me? He said, "You can pack up your stuff and go." And I said, "What did you just say to me? I can pack up my stuff and go? I'm fired just because I was late on my first day to work and because I'm not doing anything? Are you kidding me?" I mean, talk about sexism. This is the white male patriarchy at work right here. Talk about discrimination. So now it's Tuesday. I'm back. I've got my protesting signs in the trunk, and I am going to show them who's boss. And I am going to show them that this millennial generation is not taking that crap from baby boomers and Gen Xers, okay? We're going to do whatever we want to, and if we can't do that, and if we don't feel safe, then we're just going to quit, and that is a real threat.
Give this woman an Oscar. Somebody get that. Was the most incredible performance, not just of a millennial, but the most incredible performance I've seen in years. That, you know,
I appreciate that.
It was absolutely, especially the words, I feel endangered. I feel unsafe. But I'm not being facetious in any way. You nail so many points from beginning to end.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, the craziness. Now, by the way, just maybe people who are listening or watching don't believe me. Here is a clip from my own dear beleaguered alma mater, Yale, from just 2 years ago. Here's a clip of an actual millennial snowflake.
Decision as master, it is your job to create a place of comfort and home for the students that live in Silliman. You have not done that. By sending out that email, that goes against your position as master. Do you understand that? Then
no, I don't agree with that.
Then why the did you accept the position?
Because I have
hired you?
I have a different
You
vision
should
than you.
step down. If that is what you think about being a master, you should step down. It is not about creating an intellectual space. It is not. Do you understand that? It's about creating a home here. You are not doing that.
You're supposed to be our advocate.
You should be at the event last night when you hear a Franco say that she doesn't know how to create a safe space for her freshmen in Silliman. How do you explain that? These freshmen come here, they think this is what Yale is?
All right, goodbye, everybody. I can't do a show after watching that. But, by the way, just for the record, that Yale student was a girl named Geraldine Luther, and she, who asked who the F hired you, she was on the committee that gave him his position. She was a student on the committee that hired him. Just a little bit of fun.
I would have loved if he had just answered her and said, "Well, actually, it was you. You did.
You
hired me,
you,
so
my
thank
dear.
you."
Watching that, I actually do think maybe you need to up the hysteria in your own satirical performances.
I know.
But I have to ask you, channeling the movie As Good as It Gets,
yes.
how do you play millennials so well?
Okay, this is my tried and true method. You can adopt it if you want to for the next time you audition for an indie film.
Yeah, well,
so
I'll take notes.
I turn on the news, I hear something, I see a clip like this, and I'm like, wow, this is really happening.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I always get in my car. I don't know why. I get in my car and I say, okay, let me like channel these people. Let me make sure that my brain turns to mush.
Well, that's because it's a safe space.
Yes,
in your car.
and try to dial back my what's that called? EQ, emotional intelligence. Back to like age 12, 11 or something like that. And then I just kind of go from there. Really, I just turn on my camera and I start talking. I don't like write it out or anything. That's how easy it is because it mirrors reality so closely. That's probably why the majority of people that watch them think that I'm serious.
Do they? They can't tell the satire from the reality.
No, they can't.
Wow.
And they just blow right past the fact that it's called the conservative millennial and they just start typing away. But that's just internet trolls for you.
This raises a real question that I have for the culture at this moment, especially this generation. Are they beyond satire? Have they transcended parody to the point that they have so embraced the absurd that it can't be funny anymore?
Yeah.
When you call the absurd to an absurd person, nothing rings funny. There's no standard anymore.
Right. It's just sad. We were talking about this earlier. If you live in irony, is anything really ironic anymore, or is it just reality? When do we lose sight of what's irony and what's not? I love irony. That's probably more what this is than satire. I just like playing upon the ridiculousness of the irony in which they live unknowingly. But unfortunately, so many people live in that space that it is very hard to distinguish between what's true and what's not. But that's okay. I think that's all the more reason to do it. So people hear the absurdity and the illogic at the core of their argument so they can say, wow, is that really what I sound like?
But do they hear it? Is there these millennials? I mean, we could do the show every day about how insane this generation of people is, and basically we do that anyway. But do we give them in any way a bad rap? Like, what is causing it? On the one hand, it's hilarious. It's great to laugh at this chick at Yale who's screeching in her better's face. But on the other hand, it's really sad. It's sad to see ignorant students saying we don't want to learn anything, we think that we know the whole world, and we're going to inveigh against you and get you fired.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's kind of a long history lesson, I think. I think it goes back to our parents and the generation before that, and then the generation before that. I think my personal theory is the further we get away from the Great Depression and the Great Wars, the further we are, or the closer we are to entitlement, the further we are away from hard work and really understanding what it means to work hard for a dollar, what the value of a dollar is, and not having the privilege of having helicopter parents and parents that convince you that you are special no matter what. Honorable mentions, trophy, participation trophy, all those things are relatively new. And we didn't choose them. Unfortunately, our parents did. And so I can't say, of course, it's such like a millennial to kind of shift responsibility, but it's not all of our fault that we don't take responsibility. It's mom and dad's fault that I don't take responsibility. But really, I mean, that's part of it. And so, and then of course, the last 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency certainly didn't help that. If we were predisposed to being entitled, certainly everything that Obama stood for, I think, conditioned that even further. And that was evidenced by the fact that Bernie Sanders received more votes from millennials than Trump and Clinton did combined. So it just kind of feeds into our predisposition for wanting free stuff and thinking that we deserve not just material things, but also to be intellectually coddled.
That the world is fair, that the world owes you something. But how is it? This brings up two questions. Not all of us are insane. Not all of us have lost our minds. And
that's
some
true.
People are,
Fist bump.
us,
right here.
You and me, babe. We're gonna go on and save America.
Yep.
But really, I mean, there is this young right-wing movement that does cut through this craziness. So is it that soft times can't make great men? You know, that you're a product of your times. Is there any way to cut through that? And then we'll have to talk about Texas and California. But how do we rise above it when we grew up in basically a luxurious time?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing that I always advise millennials and especially college students to do, which, by the way, I found out for the first time when I was speaking out of college the other day. I was talking about millennials and, entitlement, everything we're talking about. And this little guy raised his hand and he was like, oh, by the way, we're actually not millennials, we're Generation Z. And I realized for the first time that I'm old. But anyway, how to break through that? I mean, I always tell the first thing I tell people is to read. Just read. I mean, our parents read so much more than we ever did. All we do is scroll through our ideological echo chambers made possible by a Facebook algorithm.
But you know what I always say? I'm sorry to contradict you, Allie. I always say watch a lot of podcasts. Watch the podcasts. Send them to your friends. Particularly
That's good
podcasts,
too.
young people. You bring a lot of young people on. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. But you think we should read books.
I do think we can read books, but there are other ways. So if you're not a reader, if you don't like to read, you can also listen to podcasts. For example, I listen to this podcast. I also listen to liberal podcasts. I listen to Pod Save America.
I love the liberal podcasts, Pod Save America. They are, maybe it's not proper etiquette to talk badly about people on the left doing podcasts. It's terrible. I mean, they're so
Where do you
bad.
think I get all the material for my satire? I listen to Pod Save America. I'm like, okay, got it. Got the snowflake down.
My fiance, sweet little Lisa, turned me on to this. She said, like, I listened to all of your shows, so I wanted to listen to some left-wing. There are no arguments. It's just exasperation and swear words.
Yes.
And exasperation. There's more exasperation.
And exasperated
there are no
swear
arguments
words,
in it.
yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are my favorites.
Yeah, so I think it takes more effort probably than it used to break out of our ideological echo chamber, simply because everything that has been made convenient to us in the form of, social media and information that we get from social media, it's tailored to what we already think. And so because of that, especially if you are on the left, then all you're going to get is someone that bolsters your bias. And if that's the case, then feelings of entitlement and everything that we've just been talking about is only going to increase. So what I encourage people to do, people like you and me who are just terribly logical, it's because we do break out of those echo chambers and we allow ourselves to be intellectually challenged. That kind of sounds like that's a bad thing. But intellectually, I guess, what am I trying to say? Just help me.
Edified.
Yes, I guess intellectually challenged is what I
just
what I
like
really
you,
meant.
I'm very often overwhelmed by the strength of my own logic. It's really,
Right.
it's the way to glory is what it is.
Right.
I feel a great way to glory. No, I agree with you. Obviously, you need a curiosity, and people who think the world owes them something often aren't that curious. Now, this brings me to my sales pitch to you, is that you're in Texas.
Yes.
There are a lot of great outlets like The Blaze, Steve Crowder's in Texas, a lot of people are there. I've never lived in a conservative place in my whole life. I've only lived in New York, I lived in New Haven, and a very liberal campus, Los Angeles. Is it better for conservatives to live in red states or blue states? Or should we be surrounded by people with whom we agree, or people who are absolutely out of their minds?
That's a really good question. Well, I just fear for you people that are over here in California, yes, that y'all are going to end up betraying us. Because, see, in Texas, I'm around so many other conservatives that when the rest of the world is going crazy, we're like, okay, the secession thing, like, are we going to do it? And we can kind of bond over that kind of stuff. Y'all are kind of, y'all are isolated. So I just fear for you guys that y'all are going to end up going off the deep end. Y'all are going to be peer pressured into liberalism.
The other fear for our lives is that, every time Steve Crowder gets jihaded in Texas, he can go reach for one of the 7,000 guns within arm's length.
Yes.
Here, it's much more difficult.
I don't know even how y'all deal with that. That's my biggest worry.
That it is true. It's really hard. I think in California now it's illegal to possess even 1 round of ammo. You can only have 0-round magazines in your guns.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's we're gonna have to figure out a workaround for it, hopefully.
I think that's my next satire video.
Yeah, excellent. There we go. I'll take a story credit.
Okay.
Because I've liked being in left-wing places because it has totally. You have to defend your views.
That's
constantly.
true. That's a really good point. You become an apologist for conservatism.
You have, yeah. I mean, I think Yale. I totally see your fear. I think most normal people go to Yale, and then 97% of them become left-wing automatons. But there's this great 3% that come out like more reactionary than Genghis Khan. You come out just
like stronger than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, probably too far.
Yeah.
But that you just react against it.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think that you set a great example for the rest of us millennials, whether you're on the right, or the left. You make absolutely a good point that we all should become apologists for our beliefs. And I don't necessarily have to do that quite as much when I work at the Blaze and live in Texas. I went to school in South Carolina and then I lived in Georgia, so I'm just like bouncing around to the red states.
This is interesting too, though, and we have a game that we have to get to. I've been planning this out all morning. This is this. I think it's the hardest game. It's harder than chess or Go, that Chinese game. But we'll get to that in 1 second. Because I see your point. A lot of times people who grow up with an idea, they rebel against it. They get bored with it. They don't. It's easy to fall away. The easiest way to find an ex-Catholic is to see who went to Catholic school. And then they always end up becoming atheists afterward because they don't like the nuns. You've always been a conservative.
Yes,
You've always been a Christian.
I have. Yes, I have. I grew up a conservative Christian. We grew up watching Fox News. My dad's actually a politician in Texas.
Sounds like paradise.
So I know. It sounds like I didn't have much of a choice. They brainwashed me from an early age.
But you didn't rebel.
No. Well, I didn't rebel. Actually, I would say in college, my ideas strengthened even further, even from a faith standpoint and from a political standpoint. I didn't actually get into politics until a couple years after college, when I looked around and realized that all of my very well-informed and well-educated friends just had no idea what was going on in the world and how it related to them. Which is why I birthed the conservative millennial and started making videos mostly for my friends.
And then it took off immediately, and you were picked up by the Blaze. Not
immediately. Not immediately. It took a little bit. But it didn't take very long. And now I'm on the Michael Knowles show, so I'm just going to retire tomorrow.
You reached the peak. It's all downhill from here, Allie. It's all. Do you think? Because I ask this question a lot. I always get this in the mailbag. How much does the Jesus matter to the conservatism? I think it was a friend of mine, Elena Plott, once described conservatism as Jesus, guns, and capitalism. How important is Christianity or a belief in God to this huge generation of nuns, people who grew up without religion? How important is the religion to conservative policy?
Yeah, well, I think that conservatism is necessarily a little bit subjective, and so it kind of depends on what exactly you feel is most important to conserve. I certainly don't think it's absolutely necessary to be a Christian or even to believe in God, to believe that the Constitution is inherently good and that it's a good foundation upon which we should be building our country. I don't think necessarily you have to believe in a higher power to do that. I think it absolutely helps. I think it helps to say, this is where my moral compass comes from because Jesus told me that I am supposed to love others the way that I love myself. I can always go back to that. And so, yes, it kind of, I guess, makes it easier in a way, or they go hand in hand very well, because, say, you don't have a faith at all, it very easily, to me, goes into the direction of saying, well, why would you have to care about anyone except for, survival of the fittest? So for me, they go hand in hand very well. However, I have a very good friend who is an atheist, who doesn't believe in any way that you need religion to be a great person or to be a conservative, and it works for him. So I certainly can't tell him that he's not a true conservative, at least in the secular sense, simply because he doesn't believe in God.
He might be a conservative, but he might, Andrew Klavan always says, you can be a conservative and an atheist, you just can't. And so it might well be the case that a conservative thinks, well, life, liberty, and property are pretty good things to call natural rights. And they might believe that, and they might want to promote that, and that's all well and good by me.
Right.
But they might not understand why those are natural.
Right. And what I would say to that is, that's a good point that he makes.
Hopefully, it won't be bad seeds that fall on the side of conservatives.
Whoa, parables coming out.
And mustard seeds is under 10 or over 20. For this, we're going to have to bring on our other two panelists. We have Emily Butler, and we have Dr. Bickley, the doctor himself. PhD, MD, LOL, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Get ready. This is a very important game. The points really, really matter.
All right. Is everybody ready for the questions?
I am ready, Marshall.
All right.
Shoot when you're
clear.
ready
Here we
to go.
The first quote. In my heart, I'm still little.
I could have heard that at Yale. In my heart, I'm still little.
I'm going to go with over 20.
Absolutely.
Okay, that is a 9-year-old named Samantha.
Did we all said over 20?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm like, you are.
Start off with the toughest.
Maybe we're overthinking.
We got tripped up.
Quote. You're treating me like I'm a child.
There's an obvious answer to this, right?
Under 10.
Under 10. You're treating me like I'm a child. Under 10.
The answer is 21-year-old Cora Miriam.
Prickly Puff. It was Prickly Puff.
Do it.
That is a trick question. That was Trigglypuff. All right. Did anyone have it? Who had it?
Had it.
The
I had
doctor.
it.
Of course the
We
doctor
were
had it. Okay.
All right, next question.
Next one.
Quote, sometimes I like to listen to Taylor Swift in my room and cry about cats that have died.
Same.
That's got to be. Yeah,
That was me, and I'm 25,
absolutely.
so.
That is definitely from Tumblr. Over 20.
8-year-old.
Thank you.
No, I'm just kidding. It's no, it is. It's 8-year-old.
Is it? Wait, which is it? It's an 8-year-old or it's older?
It's an 8-year-old.
Bickley.
I don't trust the
Emily,
veracity of
Emily
this
got
at
it.
all.
Okay, 1 for Emily, 2 for Bickley. The
I'm
doctor's
really
leaving.
bad at this.
Okay.
All right, next quote. Mom, Dad, you need to help me.
Oh,
Oh,
come on.
I'm going to say over 20.
yeah.
We're all saying over 20.
Absolutely.
It is in fact over 20. This
That is
24-year-old sign at a
strong.
resist protest.
That is pathetic.
At a resist protest,
That
of course.
is so pathetic. Okay, so we all got that one. Next one.
All right, next quote.
Resist adulthood.
I really love being human, but some days I really wish I could just be a fairy.
This is.
Oh.
Let's hope. Let's just hope, please.
I'm going to say under 10.
Okay,
I don't
this
think-
is a woman or a girl named Emily at 4 years old.
Hey, all right.
I feel a little bit
Under
better.
10, all right. So none for Emily. We
That
got
was
it.
truly
Okay.
depressing.
The next one is, quote, can I wear a bear costume at your wedding as I'm the ring bearer?
Where?
How many,
Oh.
like, 22-year-old ring bearers do you know?
I'll double down on under 10.
This is Simon, age 7.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Phew.
Got it.
Next one coming at you fast. I am a werewolf.
I'm all right. I'm going right back at it.
Over 20.
I feel like this is a trick.
This is 28-year-old otherkin named Riviera.
We gotta pause. It's for the people who don't. So who got that one? I didn't get that one.
I got it. You
got
don't
it.
you don't
I-
recognize otherkin when you hear it?
So an otherkin for the. Did you say over 22?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to put that. So
Please
an
explain this.
otherkin is one of the 56 genders that now exist, according to Facebook and probably every university in the country. And otherkin it's like a trans species, but not a real species, like a fake species. So like I think I'm like a werewolf. I think I'm.
I think we recently ran a clip of a cat man the same way.
Yeah, there was the. Well, that's a different thing. I think there were also furries. It gets very
Furries.
complicated. Yeah, we'll get into that later. Sorry, keep going, Marshall.
Okay, next one is, I am made of gold, treat me like it.
I'm gonna go under 10.
Yeah, girl.
Millennial.
All right, the answer is, that is a 20-something woman's sign at the Women's March Rally in Washington, D.C.
Knew it.
I'm going to start using that. I like that line.
I
do
am
like
gold.
it a lot.
Who had it? Who got
I tell
it?
myself
I
that in
did.
the mirror every morning.
I would have a poster of that on my wall.
I am gold.
All right, the next one is, quote, it's about creating a home here.
All right, that is a gimme, but it's really sad that it's a gimme. That is.
All right, the first one I think you guys all got right. That is Geraldine Luther, a Yale undergraduate, Michael's old best friend.
That's my old professor, Gerald.
Next one coming at you, quote, Donald Trump is a bad man. What do you say that for? He just is.
Donald Trump is a bad man. What do you say for he just is?
Oh, that's
Given that logical
be
progression.
anyone on
over
Twitter.
20.
Do you think it's?
But
I'm gonna say over 20. I'm gonna.
This is Kylie, 6 years old.
Might have lost my lead.
Allie got it. Let's see. No. Okay. So right now the Dr. Bickley, and Allie are tied.
All right, let's break that tie with the next quote. I don't vote. I don't do no voting.
That's under 10.
oh, I think that's
Oh, no.
that's it.
That's over 20.
This is in
Grown
fact
adult.
famous rapper and Coachella headliner Kendrick Lamar, 30 years old.
Over 20
Oh,
is highly
man.
Two.
successful.
Who got that one? It was.
I didn't know it was
Yeah, I
Kendrick,
think we're still
but
tied. Wow.
All right,
Oh, sorry.
next quote. Donald Trump hates brown people.
I'll say over 20, right? I could see some like college person saying that. Do we have our votes in?
Allie, I need an answer.
I'm so sorry.
That's your final answer? Okay.
Sure.
This is Chelsea Handler, 42 years old.
Chelsea Handler. Allie, the only one not to get
Uh.
it. We all knew. I didn't know it was Handler though. Okay.
Sweet Chelsea.
All right, next one. Quote.
Next one.
I know Trump hates brown people.
That's the same quote.
I know Trump hates people with brown skin.
That's still the same. That is a different quote?
This is a different quote. This is Charlie at 5 years old. It's hard to get
No,
him. It's hard to tell the
Oh my
difference.
God.
Hold on. I guess we had the.
I
I
would've
thought it
missed
was
that. I
over
would've missed
20. Bickley was picking up over
Honor
20.
system, I would have missed it.
Yeah, I would have missed
So we're
it.
tied.
All right.
I know,
Emily
5
and
years old
Allie
and Chelsea
both got
Handler,
it.
hard to differentiate, guys. Next
Okay.
one, quote. If Donald Trump becomes president, I'm going to be super, super mad, and I'll move to a different world.
Oh man, I don't know.
I could.
I'm actually getting nervous about this now.
Yeah, it could have been like any celebrity, I guess. We all say over 20.
Okay, this is at Blake, 5 years old.
It's really sad that we can't differentiate.
This is really sad. None of us got
This
that
is the
point.
last quote.
Okay. All right.
Sort
So
of
by the
similar.
way, so right now, Allie and the doctor are tied. This is the tiebreaker,
So-
possibly.
Okay, tiebreaker,
Oh,
here we
pressure.
go. Quote. If he were to be elected, I'm moving to Jupiter.
Also basically the same quote. I am going to go under 10. God bless.
This is Cher at age 1,410.
Sure.
Share?
Sure.
Yeah, this is Cher.
Who got it? Oh, you both? Oh, all right.
Both got it.
Well,
Oh.
so Emily and I lost. There's a tie between the good Dr. Bickley and Allie, but you know what? None of that matters because there are no winners and losers here at the Michael Knowles Show. There are only participation trophies. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you so
I
much.
feel like we're all number one. Don't you feel like we're just all number one?
Sure, I'll
I'm
give
sup-
you a fist bump too.
I'm
Good
supposed
job.
to be number one.
I'm
That's what I was
supposed
told.
to be. I'm supposed to be. This is not about an intellectual space. It's about creating a home here. That's going to be the motto of my show. Okay, panel. Thank you all for coming on. We have got to. It's so stupid. We have got to get to the important news of the day. Before we
That
do
wasn't the important news of
That
the
was,
day.
yeah, that was the news to me of the day. That was the most important news to me. Now, before we get to all of this important news about Republican propaganda and Jimmy Kimmel's craziness and meat-eating vegetarians and shrieking women who are being mean to veterans, we have to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. I know, you want to watch more. We have Allie Stuckey in studio. Best day ever. But in order to do that, you have to go to dailywire.com. You have to pay $10 per month, $100 per year. That's nothing. You know what you get for all that? You get me. You get the Andrew Klavan Show. You get the Ben Shapiro Show. I know what you're thinking. So what? So what? Well, this is what the Leftist Tears Tumblr. It is the perfect vessel for all of the leftist tears, and they are flowing day by day. I actually have a beautiful Jimmy Kimmel vintage 2017 in here right now. It is absolutely indestructible. It's made of crushed up Steven Crowder mugs that have been consolidated into, I think, titanium. I think that's how titanium is made. So go over to dailywire.com right now. We'll be right back.